So with that, I will get started. So what is shared governance anyway? Shared governance is defined as a system that allows constituent groups to be actively involved in the development of policies and decision makings that affect the institution. It's a cornerstone of academia, but it's not so common in other workplaces. I know before I worked here in the corporate environment, this was not a thing. So I think it's pretty cool that as employees and students, we have a say in how things work here. So next, I'm turning it over to Laurie to do this slide.
Thanks, Amber. As Amber shared earlier, I'm Laurie Cooper Stoll. I'm the director of the University Senate office, and I want to echo Amber in that um, being able to participate in decisions that are made at the university is both a benefit and privilege for those of us who work here. And I want to talk about four reasons that shared governance is so beneficial. The first of those is that it fosters a culture of trust and collaboration. So by including a wide range of voices in decision making, shared governance builds trust and a sense of shared ownership. And this can lead to a more positive and productive campus environment as stakeholders feel that their contributions are valued. Two, it ensures institutional stability and continuity. So the involvement of faculty, staff, and students in shared governance helps maintain continuity during leadership changes and hopefully prevents repetition of past mistakes. Third, it enhances decision quality. Shared governance acts as a system of checks and balances. It brings together the perspectives of faculty, staff, and students to the table, and this leads to a more robust and well-vetted, decisions that consider the interest of all parties. And finally, it increases buy-in for difficult changes. So when faculty, staff, and students are involved in the planning and implementation of significant changes, they're more likely to support and advocate for them. And this can make the process smoother and more effective, especially during times of financial strain or institutional restructuring. And now I'd like to say a few words about shared governance at the U. Thanks, Amber. So, University of Minnesota is actually pretty well known for its robust shared governance system. Um, Shared governance began in 1912. Amber, correct me if I have that wrong, but I think it's 1912, and it began with only faculty members participating. Later, students were invited to share shared governance as well. And it's not necessarily uncommon in academia to as far as shared governance goes, to have a faculty senate, student senate. But one of the things that does make us unique is that we are one of the few systems that includes staff as well. And that's one of the reasons that we have such a strong system of shared governance here. Um, so faculty, students, P&A, civil service can all participate in shared governance across the university. Unfortunately, at the University of Minnesota, union representative folks are not eligible to participate in shared governance. Shared governance is system-wide. So it's not something that exists in only one campus. And two of the most important things that folks who are engaged in shared governance do is advise and consult. And so influence and political capital are extremely important as we bring different folks to the table to be able to weigh in on important decisions that are made at the university. As far as what that looks like from meeting to meeting, most shared governance meetings take place over Zoom. That is actually the preference based on surveys that we have implemented in the Senate office. There are on occasion some in-person opportunities as well. So we have the best of both worlds there. And so with that, Amber, I think I'm turning it back over to you. You're muted, Amber.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about the structure of the shared governance system here at the University of Minnesota. It's pretty large. We have, I don't know, I should have checked this number before. I want to say like 1,000 participants every year. And there's a number of ways to be involved, from being a member of a Senate to a committee, or um, some of our senates have subcommittees that you don't even have to be a member of the Senate of. You can just join because you're interested. So I'll talk a little bit about those. So just to talk about the structure first, the University Senate is the kind of umbrella body, we like to say. So the university system comprises representatives from all four of the other senates. So there's 5 separate senates, and everyone has representation on the University Senate. So that's faculty, students, P&A, and civil service. But then all of those groups also have their own senates that meet separately. Um, the University Senate meets about 6 times a year, and each of the other senates holds separate meetings as well. And the number of meetings for those ranges from 2 to like 6 or 7 as well. Each Senate has a consultative committee, which are represented by these white circles here. These are the executive and steering committees for the Senates. So the Senate Consultative Committee, the Faculty Consultative Committee, the P&A Consultative Committee, etc. And they are charged with setting agendas, serving as a deliberative body for the Senates, and if needed, taking action on behalf of the Senate when there's the time is of the essence. Members of the consultative committees are elected by their constituents or members of the Senate. All of the other committees that are not consultative committees report up through one of the Senates. So as I mentioned earlier, the P&A Senate and the Civil Service Senate have these working group subcommittees that any P&A or civil service member can join. So you don't have to be appointed in any way. You don't have to be a member of the Senate. You can just reach out and say, hey, this is an interesting topic to me, and I'd like to be involved. The other committees that are kind of at the bottom here that report up through the faculty, university, and student senate are appointed bodies. They're mostly appointed by the Senate Committee on Committees or the Student Committee on Committees, although there's some variation about who does appointing, but by and large, the Committee on Committees is charged with that. Committees, as you can see, cover a number of different topics such as educational policy, research, social concerns, finance and planning. So anything that you're interested in, there's probably a committee that touches on that. Much of the work of the senates happens in the committees because the senates are very large bodies and they meet somewhat infrequently, so they aren't really set up for kind of the nitty-gritty work, but that's where the committees come in, and then they often bring proposals or information to the Senate. I'll also just note here that our Senate differs from the US Senate in that members of the committees do not have to be senators. So we have many members of committees who don't serve on senates as well, but also some who do. All right, Dina, you're up.
Hello, everyone. Dina Barker, Senate Associate. You may be asking yourself, what do senators and committee members do? The committees meet 6 to 10 times per year, and senates meet a minimum of 2 times per year. And we do ask that if you sign up, that you are committed to attending those meetings. To prepare yourself for a meeting, we ask that you review the agenda and any materials. The information will be sent out in advance of the meeting. If a vote is required, come prepared to ask questions and be ready to cast your vote. Send pertinent information out to your constituents to share information and gather feedback on issues. This is a great way to know who you represent in your area, to gather feedback and network. It will also put you in a position to have people reach out to you with concerns that you can bring to your Senate and committees to discuss. And I will pass it to Donovan.
Hello, my name is Donovan Lara. I'm one of the Senate Associates. So, what's in it for me by joining shared governance here at the U? Well, first, you have a say in decisions, be part of discussions on policy and issues that are important to you and your campus community members. You get to know people all over the university. The Senates and Senate committees are made up of a diverse group of student, staff, and faculty from all UMN campuses. This is an excellent opportunity to get to know people from other departments and offices. You get to be in the know about current issues. You will hear from campus and department leaders on what's going on, learn from your constituents about what's happening from their perspective, and bring issues up to shared governance. You can learn more about the inner workings of the institution and build on your understanding of such a complex and large Big Ten research institution, whether that be about academic affairs, student affairs, finance, operations, etc. You can also build relationships with administrators. As you hear from campus leaders, this is a great opportunity to get to know them and hear them, get to know them, and for them to get to know you. Building relationships is important as you consult and collaborate with administrators on policy and campus issues. And lastly, this looks great on a resume. Joining Shared Governance is an opportunity for you to gain leadership experience. And joining does a great service for your colleagues and the institution. I will pass it on to Amber.
All right, thank you. I'm going to talk now about some things that shared governance has accomplished in recent years. So here's some examples. So first of all, this is probably the most recent one, the funding for the Washington Avenue Bridge barrier. There, as some of you know, the university's budget request from the state wasn't super successful this year, but we did get money for to put up a barrier on the Washington Avenue Bridge to prevent people from jumping. And part of that was some advocacy that, you know, other groups were doing, student groups were doing and such. But the Senate Consultative Committee also wrote a statement in support of that specific funding. And that statement was given to the folks in government relations to share with legislators and stuff. So was it only because of shared governance? No, of course not. But I have to think that it probably helped. And it was something, you know, tangible that the committee could do to really make a difference. There were some changes proposed in the recently to the faculty phase retirement program. And some of those changes that were proposed, the Faculty Consultative Committee and the Senate Committee on Faculty Affairs were pretty opposed to some of the changes that were being proposed. And so they were walked back. So that was a really good example of the committees giving their input and just saying like, yeah, no, we don't think that's a good idea. And because we have a collaborative relationship with Office of Human Resources, that was successful. The disability training. So many of you have probably done the training that's required for instructors on how to work with and best practices for supporting students with disabilities. And this was a really, really long project that came out of the Disabilities Issues Committee. The idea for it started shortly after the preventing sexual misconduct training was rolled out, and people saw that there was a pretty good response to that, and the committee thought, well, there was a need for additional training for related to disabilities. And so they spent a whole year coming up with a resolution, which they worked closely with the Disability Resource Center on and some other administrative partners. And then they brought that around to other committees to gain support and do some kind of preliminary change management and consensus building. And by the end of that was about a year-long process. By the end of that, when it was brought to the Senate for a vote, we were already getting questions from people like, when is this training going to be rolled out? Because I really want it. And so it passed the Senate, and then there was another process after that where there was an implementation group that decided, you know, really how to make it work. And so it was a very, very long process, but it was, you know, really a grassroots effort from one committee that made a difference in what we do today. Workforce reinvestment work, there was a resolution that was pretty groundbreaking a few years ago because it was a joint effort between the faculty, the P&A, and the Civil Service Consultative Committees, all advocating for the administration to really reinvest in and prioritize the workforce. And that was really instrumental in having that be one of the boards and the president's priorities for this year. And we did get raises, which was really nice because the budget was tight this year, so that wasn't necessarily a guarantee. There's other types of work that are going on related to that, such as work to look at the P&A instructor and lecturer kind of faculty-like P&A structures and try to improve that somehow. And then also there's a faculty burden reduction committee. There's a number of initiatives that came out of that workforce reinvestment work and that are ongoing. And finally, another effort that came out of the Disabilities Issues Committee was having information about substance misuse resources in the drug-free campus emails. So we all get those, I think, twice a year from OHR, reminding us that this is a drug-free campus and that we are supposed to comply with that policy. A few years ago when that came out, the Disabilities Issues Committee was really focused on recovery issues and resources for people with substance misuse challenges and in recovery. And they saw that email and it was just like, we're a drug-free campus, have fun, but there wasn't any information on how people could get help if they were struggling with that issue. And so the chair of that committee sent an email to Ken Horstman, the Vice President of Human Resources, and asked for that language to be included, and it has been since then. So that was another really nice win for that committee. So those are just a few examples of ways that shared governance has made a difference. There's all kinds of small ways too that are hard to go into, but certainly when you really look at it, there's more that gets done than sometimes people think. All right. Jacqueline.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Adair. I'm one of the Senate Associates, and I'm also policy liaison for the office. So if you'd like to get involved, there are a couple ways you can do this. If you'd like to join a Senate, the Senate seats are elected, and a call for nominations is sent out to all eligible individuals, typically in March or April. And the sender of that email depends on the Senate. So for the faculty or P&A Senate, there's a unit contact that sends that email. For the Student Senate, the email comes from Campus Elections Committee, and Civil Service Senate sends out their own call for nominations. And then following the nomination period, ballots are sent out typically by these groups. If you're interested in applying for a committee, you can submit an interest form, which can be found on the Get Involved page of the University Senate's website. These seats are appointed either by the Senate Committee on Committees or the Student Committee on Committees, depending on the group. And the majority of these appointments are made in the spring. Amber?
Yeah, so that is kind of it for our presentation. Here are just some resources, of course, our website. You can dig around on there and find all kinds of stuff. As Jacqueline just mentioned, there's links to apply for committees. Here's a link to our YouTube channel if you're interested in seeing what a Senate meeting looks like. Those are all recorded and are put on YouTube, so you can check those out. There are I think there's a couple other things on there, but it's mostly Senate meetings. You can certainly reach out to any of us at any time if you have questions. But if there are questions right now, please feel free to put those in the, I guess, the Q&A. We can take some now. Either put them in Q&A or chat is fine too. Can links be shared in the chat? That is a good, that's a good question. Are any of my colleagues able to put some of these links in the chat? I can't do it while I'm sharing screen. Thank
Amber,
you.
I think because you're the host, you're the only one that can chat everybody in the webinar. As panelists, we don't have the ability to chat.
I'm going to make you all co-hosts then. Thanks for that. And I see there is a question in the Q&A. How long do senators serve? So that's a good question. Typically, terms are for 3 years. So you're elected for a 3-year term. And then if you would like to, you can run for another 3-year term. So senators can serve up to 6 years and then they have to take a break. That's the same with committee members. Usually 3-year terms, although there are some committees where that's different. And again, you have the kind of the 6-year cap, and then you can take a break or serve on a different committee or whatever. It's a 6-year cap, 6-year consecutive cap on one committee or Senate. Let's see. Who votes for committee members? So it depends. Most of the committees, like the ones that I talked about that are appointed by the Committee on Committees, so disabilities issues, equity, access, and diversity, finance and planning, faculty affairs, those kinds of committees are appointed by another committee called the Senate Committee on Committees, or student members are appointed by the Student Committee on Committees. And so those committee members, it's the members of the Committee on Committees who vote on who to appoint for those seats. For the consultative committees, which are the steering committees for the Senates, senators vote for those members, except for faculty. Faculty consultative committee members are elected by the faculty at large, and that goes out when that's like March-ish, to all tenure track faculty on the Twin Cities campus. And then there's all kinds of different information. The system campuses elect their own members to the faculty consultative committee as well. The general time commitment as a senator during those 3 years. So for the University Senate, we have 6 meetings. They're about between an hour and a half and 2.5 hours per meeting. Sometimes there's special meetings added. Sometimes they are longer or shorter, depending on how much business is for the Faculty Senate versus the University Senate. Faculty Senate, again, 6 meetings and usually, well, 2.5 hours usually, because all faculty senators are also university senators. Jacqueline, Dina, Donovan, do you want to talk about time commitment for P&A, civil service, and student senators?
That is a tricky question. I'm trying to think of how much time would be involved. I know, so for the P&A Senate, we meet 6 times per year. Each meeting is 2 hours. Occasionally there might be something to review in advance, like a policy changes, but the Senates don't make like recommendations on those. They're more for information. But I think it really varies depending on the Senate. So it would be different for Civil Service Senate, which meets twice a year, and Student Senate.
Yep, civil service is a little bit less, but again, there are subcommittees, so you can decide to spend a little bit more time doing the work, or if you want to take up an issue, there are more times. But yeah, civil service does meet less, but the meetings are 2 hours as well.
And Student Senate meets 6 times a year, 3 in the fall, 3 in the spring. And they're about 2-hour meetings.
Thanks, team. So the next question I see is, would you characterize the Senate's role as more advisory or having actual power in university governance? So that's a hard question because it depends. Like we mentioned earlier, a lot of it is advisory that is dependent on having good working relationships and trust between the administration and the Senate. There are certain things like the tenure code, educational policies that the Faculty Senate has to approve any changes to. There are committees that have to be consulted on any time that there's a policy change. So for example, the Educational Policy Committee has to consult on like every single educational policy when there's changes. So that committee has a lot of work, and that is kind of baked in. Like the Equity, Access, and Diversity Committee consults on policies related to those topics and whatnot. The with the exception of the educational, well, not even with the exception of the educational policies, there's a kind of another level to policy creation that is the President's Policy Committee, and they have the final say on policies that's basically made up of, I think, like the vice presidents and stuff. Jacqueline, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And they have the final say. They don't tend to touch educational policies much once SCEP and the Faculty Senate have weighed in. But they do have other, like kind of the final authority over policy. So with the institutional speech policy, although that was created and kind of approved at the Senate, the board decided to go a different way, and sometimes that happens.
Amber, can I jump in and just say we have a couple questions in the chat that I don't want to get missed?
Yes.
The
Sure.
first one is, can this webinar be done periodically? It's very helpful.
I don't see why not.
Okay, the next one is, can collective governance push for budgetary transparency?
Yes, they certainly can, and that might be something that the Finance and Planning Committee might want to take up. I know they have a relationship with the budget folks and finance folks. So yeah, that's something that could be advocated for.
And the next one is, approximately how many people run for elections for Civil Service Senate?
Dina, are you there? Do you want to take that one? We can come back to it. She might have stepped away. Okay, so the next one I have in the Q&A is, I'm new to being a civil service member. Can you explain what civil service is? How is it different to being part of a union? That is a little bit outside of our wheelhouse. So civil service is one of the employee groups here at the university. The other ones are P&A, and then there's a number of union represented groups. And how it differs from being in a union, it's you are represented through shared governance instead of through a union, basically. The university sometimes experiences issues of incivility and poor collaboration on multiple levels. What advice or training can be recommended to promote and support civil discourse and shared governance? That's a very good question, and it is something that we are actively struggling with and thinking about quite a lot right now. We do a training for senators at the beginning of every Senate year that includes some information about, the importance of respecting one another and working together in collaboration and having a good working relationship. We're thinking about other options as well. We actually just had at our last Senate meeting on October 23rd, we had a discussion about how to increase trust in the Senate. So we are actively collecting feedback and trying a number of different things. There's also a book that just came out from, was it the Chronicle or about how to increase trust between shared governance and the administration, which our office has ordered. So once we get that, we'll have all the answers and we'll let you know.
We have it, and I've already read it and taken notes.
Perfect. So yes, very, very important topic and something we're working on for sure. Dina, there's a question about civil service. Can you answer that one? How many
What was
people?
the question? I apologize. I was having a sneezing fit.
Oh, no. No, totally fine. It's approximately how many people run for elections for Civil Service Senate?
So the Civil Service Senate has 25, or sorry, the University Senate has 25 spots for civil service members. Is that the question?
I think maybe it's more like how for each unit seat, how many?
Oh, so it depends on how many people are in each unit. I have a math problem I have to do every time. So depending on the amount of people in the unit, that kind of depends on how many seats that they get. Usually it's 1 to 4, depending. Like, so academic gets 4 seats, health and sciences gets 2, Morris gets 1. Is that what we're asking? Does it help answer the question?
Are there usually like really contested elections, or is it a few people running?
No, one of the big things that we're trying to do on civil service right now is get more people. We have had kind of trouble with some engagement the last couple of years, but right now we're really working on that engagement. We're hoping to have special elections this fall because we really would like more civil service engagement. So anyone who's in civil service can run. And then what we do is we hold nominations and then elections. It goes out campus wide.
Dina, you want to mention the paid time that folks get to participate?
Yes, so there was a rule change in the last couple of years that allows, I'm going to sneeze again, I'm sorry, civil service members to get, I think it's 24 hours. I'm so sorry.
24 hours per year to
Per year
participate in-
paid to be able to participate in governance, which is great because I know a lot of civil service employees were worried about finding the time to be able to engage, but now it's embedded into your employment. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, that was a big win for the Civil Service Consultative Committee. They got that added to the Civil Service Employment Rules, which is great. And we just recently sent out an email from the president encouraging or kind of notifying supervisors of civil service employees that that's now they're required to let people do that for those 24 hours. So it seems that shared governance is declining given some of the recent decisions. Wanted to know how shared governance is really going. So I have worked in the Senate office for 9 years, 8.5, 9 years, something like that. And I would say I don't think it's declining. I think it's a really challenging time right now. We've always had kind of, times when the administration does what the Senate wants and times when they don't, times when they're able to come to an agreement and times when they're not. So I don't think it's different so much in like how much power or strength shared governance has. I do think it's just everything is really divided right now, not just at the university, but also and probably largely because of the national landscape. And people are just feeling like people are just upset about a lot of things. And so that tends to come through in shared governance sometimes. But I do think it is still strong. We're really working hard to make sure that it stays that way.
And Amber, I'll just add, especially after having, read some of that latest data, we are not unique in that. This is something that has been found across colleges and universities over the past several years. So it's something we're all, have a vested interest in figuring out how to ensure that trust and collaboration and transparency.
Yes. Okay.
Can I just break in real quick, Amber? Someone asked me to repeat the hours for civil service. It's 24 hours paid time to be able to engage in governance.
Per year, right?
Per year, sorry, yeah.
Yep. Can you explain what items the university administration can act on? I think I kind of talked about that already. So it's basically anything except the tenure code and educational policies. But if the Senate's really against something, it does definitely give them pause. Not to say they won't always go ahead, or they won't sometimes go ahead anyway, but it definitely makes them think. Why are union represented employees not eligible to be involved in senates? So that's a really good question too. My understanding is that it stems from 80s, 90s when the UMD and Crookston, or maybe it was just UMD at first, faculty unionized. And at that point, the Board of Regents, I think with OGC, made the decision that they were not eligible to serve in shared governance anymore. It has to do with what is it called? The outside negotiation or something like that, where it appears the university is negotiating directly with employees instead of through the union. How does one throw in their hat to be involved in the Senate committee? We are, let's see. So there's on our website, there's the Get Involved tab, and you can apply through that. Each constituency has their own kind of application. Students are a little bit different because for senates, the elections are run centrally through this all commissions all campus election commission. Is that right, Donovan? But to put your name in the hat to be on a committee as a faculty or staff member, just apply through that link. And those appointments are made in the spring for the next academic year. So there's going to be an all-call email going out in December or January, but you can go ahead and apply now if you want to. And then after that all-call goes out, the committee starts working on appointments, and that it takes a while because there's a lot of seats to appoint, but that happens in spring semester. At one time I was notified when meeting minutes were posted. I don't see that anymore. We stopped doing it because we have all the minutes on our website now, and we thought people could just see them if they wanted to, but we've had several people ask, so we are going to be reinstating that starting in the spring. How do Senate members connect and gather feedback from their constituents? And the topic of things it seems Senate groups may cover rarely, if ever, surface. Is it up to the Senate member to connect? Yeah, so kind of goes two ways. So if there's something that's going to come up at a Senate or at a committee, when we try to send agendas out early enough to give people some time to talk to their constituents about the things that are on the agenda. On the flip side, if there are things that your constituents are raising, you can also bring those to the Senate or to the committee. What if your classification changes during your term? Jacqueline, Dina, either of you want to talk about that?
So that is something that we have seen happen, and you will have to step out of, say, it's civil service, and then you can run for P&A when there are elections.
If there's an open seat. So
If there- sorry, yeah.
unfortunately, if you're holding a civil service seat and you change to P&A, you're no longer eligible to serve. But if there is an opening in P&A that fits your unit, you can run for that committee or Senate seat.
Looking at the time here, we still have some time. So what's the next step after this to run for the Civil Service Senate or for any Senate? You may watch for an email to come out or contact one of us to get more information about that. But elections are generally going to be happening in the spring, and you'll get an email from our office about that.
Amber, you want to take just a moment to share who's the Senate associate that works with which Senate?
That's a good idea. So I work with the Faculty Senate and the University Senate. Dina works with Civil Service, Donovan works with students, and Jacqueline works with the P&A Senate. And that information is all on our website as well.
They are excellent contacts. So if you have any questions about running, or just about serving in general, I encourage you to reach out to those folks.
All right. Is this a space where you're seeing gender disparities in volunteerism and taking on these extra roles? That's a good question. I know that often women are more kind of tend to take on these roles more. I think the committees that I work with are pretty balanced, but yeah, definitely something that we try to be aware of. Anyone else want to speak to that? I don't know.
Since we don't have specific data on that, I hesitate to speak to that.
Yeah, I do know specifically the Faculty Consultative Committee thinks about that very hard every year when they do nominations. So definitely for that committee, it's been pretty 50-50 over the last several years. I just want to clarify that unionization and shared governance are not mutually exclusive. There are many examples around the country where faculty are unionized, and this can help ensure shared governance. Agree, that is definitely the case at many institutions nationwide. It is just not the case at ours. And this question, the biggest difference when going from a position in civil service to P&A, I think is a little bit outside of our wheelhouse. That's more of an HR question. So that's all the questions that I have at the moment. Thank you all so much for being here. Again, if you have other questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Our contact information is all on the website, and I will get those well-being instructions sent out shortly after this. Thank you so much, everybody.